I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Correct.
September 6th, Northwood School Board meeting. Bills and manifests are going around.
Yes, question?
Yeah.
Fresh Picks, we paid them $10,952, and on the bottom it said September. That's not just for 1 month, is it, or is that?
I would have to take that
Okay.
question and get back to you.
So is that a monthly fee? That's all, that was my
Well,
question.
which was it, 10,000?
10,900, so say 11,000.
That can't be a monthly fee then.
Can I look at your budget?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right there.
All right.
Okay, that was
In the
all.
meantime, we're going to start off with our roll call. Keith McGuigan, here. Shane Wells. Here. Amy Hanavan.
Here.
Brian Winslow.
Here.
David Ruth.
Yes, here.
And if we go around for all the panelists and introduce yourselves, please.
Adrian Northwood, Assistant Principal.
Good.
Scott Moon, Superintendent.
Nate Burns, Student Service Director.
Jocelyn Young, Principal.
Kat Brown, Curriculum Director.
Thank you very much. First thing is agenda adjustments. Looking at our agenda, I did talk to Mr. Runing before, and this legal opinion update slated for the non-public session can be moved into public, and we're going to just move it into part of his principal's report. I'm sorry, the superintendent's report. Problem with that? Okay, we'll skip along that then. I don't think there's anything else we need to address there. So we'll start with the opening public comment. Do we get agendas? You can borrow mine. Not mine, maybe somebody else's. You're welcome. Are they typically sitting in a pile of
See, there's a few up back there.
Okay.
Yes. Monthly fee.
So, all set? Any board member like to take this opportunity to address the board?
Nope.
No. All right, we will close the public comment session and move on to our business. On our consent agenda tonight, we have approval of school board minutes for October 16th, public and non-public. And then that's starting on page 4 of our packet. And the personnel report on page 10.
I have a very brief amendment to the minutes on page 7. I don't know if we want to just do that and then approve it or take it off, but
I think it's fine.
okay, on page 7 it says committee reports, and the first bullet, Brian Winslow reported the SAU technology was attacked because it was old. I did not report that. I don't remember who said that, but it wasn't me.
It could have been me, but that would have made sense.
page was that?
Page 7?
Could have been you.
Could have been either.
It's probably you, because I wouldn't have said it's old. That was made up.
No, that was you.
Some fancier word.
It was him?
All right.
Cool, thank you.
Put it in.
Corrections?
Put it as me
Can
then.
somebody point out where that is?
The very
I'm on 7.
very top page,
Very
first
first
line.
sentence.
I didn't say that.
Not Brian Winslow. Put me in there instead.
I actually think it was because of a bot, not all.
Right.
So it should say because of a bot. And I think that one of us.
Yeah. There's a number of reasons, but the bot is good enough.
We'll
for
just
minutes.
write, it was reported. And then,
All right. That'll work. Did you have something? Sorry. Yes.
Corrections, page 5. Principal's report, about 6 or 7 lines down. It said Mr. Young and Mr. Elfwood.
Mess in there.
Page 6,
I missed that one.
the very first paragraph, Mrs. Young stated the interim came. I would think it would be the interim building inspector.
Yeah.
And you're right, I do prefer Ms. over Mrs.
And I do have a, now that you said that, I don't know, being an old timer, being whatever, I just think that everybody here should be either addressed as Mr., Mrs., Ms., whatever the title is. I don't, I look and I say, well, Mrs. Young or Mr. Alford, and then I see Dave, Brian, or Mr. Tom. I just think there's a decorum in the way it used to be, that everybody would be addressed by
Yeah.
that title.
I agree.
That's all.
So we'll just, I'd say going forward.
That's
we'll-
a small thing.
You can call me whatever you want it. They call worse.
That, I think, is it.
Anything else on the consent agenda that needs addressing?
Back on the principal's report. 6 lines down, he asked, change that to a C.
So, this is, yeah, it's there, so.
I was looking down on my report
Yeah.
where it usually is.
Okay, so just to point out, we do have the position we authorized for hiring at our last meeting on page 10. Benjamin Ludwig. So this is serves as the nomination for that, the official nomination. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second?
Second from Ms. Handeman. Is there any other discussion?
Hope we're not out of line. Is this, are we voting on the appointment of the Benjamin Ludwig?
Yes, that's part of it, yeah. That's on the
Okay.
consent agenda, so, yep.
And well, I guess my first question was, I didn't have this, so I noticed that that rate was at probably the highest rate that we can give somebody. So it was felt that he had all the qualifications and he met all those masters.
Did you read his, did you look
Yeah,
at
I
his
was
resume?
reading it, but when I first had the good question, then I figured okay.
Mr. I will let you know that we were not very hopeful that we were going to get qualified applicants in that period of time. If you remember, we had a late resignation. Mr. Ludwig was interviewed by Ms. Young on a Monday. After we looked at who we had, she checked his references as he drove to the SAU. I interviewed him. He's extremely qualified, extremely experienced, not only as a language arts teacher, but also as an author. He's published books, and he's pretty talented. Ms. Young, you want to add anything to Mr. Ludwig's?
How much do you have to pay him to come?
It's right here under. I will say that we were very fortunate to have him apply. We wondered if he would accept the job because he was clearly a hot commodity for other schools as well, but we won him over with our charm.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
My charm. I can be quite
No,
charming.
don't think I don't want the board to think it didn't cross my mind like, oh, they authorized me to do a hire and I just hired the most expensive person. It did. But clearly it was the best choice for your school. I can let you know that I've been in every one of your classrooms this year. I've been in every classroom in the district, in the SAU this year. And I watched Mr. Ludwig and one of the other hires, and I am extremely impressed with their demeanor with the kids and their instructional knowledge and skill. And I don't know if you'll concur, but I imagine you will.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we're ready to vote. I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda as amended?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to our student services report.
Okay. As you can see in your report, I highlighted the things that we've done over the last month. I will be doing a presentation on the NEC Partner Program. Before I do that, I wanted to just share with you what we've done outside of that. My office has started developing the special education portion of SY 1920 school year budget, so looking at trying to develop that and see what that's going to look like. We've also, as I reported, we were going to be attending the Summer Academy. We had attended that. It was a really great academy. Lots of information was shared, some good legal updates for us to know. And then below you can see your census numbers for your total students identified at 114. The additional student information being your students with 504 and/or homeless students. Those numbers were good as of June 18th, June 2018, when we submitted them. They are currently being updated as we speak. So your next census, I will show you the changes that have taken place and highlight the differences. Let me go ahead and start up my presentation if you don't have any other questions regarding the census or what we've done.
Just on a high level, is the census, I mean, is it approximately the same as it's been for a while? There's no
It
big
is.
changes? Okay.
No major changes. You want to do the lights at half, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it otherwise. We can give it a shot. You were walking over there, so I thought I'd
It's not between 12 and 4.
I know. They changed it.
Okay, so it was asked at the last meeting, what are partner programs looking like right now and what's going on in it. So I don't want to go over each slide word for word. I sent this out ahead of time, but I do want to give some highlights for each one. So the district goals of using our partner program was to accelerate our learning of some of our more challenged students, really looking at decreasing the challenging behavior, trying to keep them in the least restrictive environment, which is their home school, being a part of their community before sending them away, and looking at more expensive alternatives. So really making sure that we're being able to service them where we're at, which goes to keeping students in district, and then really being able to provide a continuum of services to our population, making sure that they're getting the same thing throughout their entire school career here. So the areas that were looked at in this programming when we're starting to look at what we can offer some of our students is really, we're looking at language and communication, social, self-regulation, and self-control. We want to look at their academics, self-help, and vocational skills. So how can we prepare them moving on outside of our elementary school, moving forward our K-8 school? So what we use is a partner program with NEC, and the purpose is to provide that continuum of support with an out-of-district private organization coming in and helping us inside of our building. This is their specialty, working with some of those more challenging students. Again, you can see the goals. It's to improve access, provide access to what we're already doing in our schools. It's really looking at doing some independence when you're talking about academic, social skills, and health skills. Keep our students in our community schools. Really looking at that. And when I say our community schools, we also have some of our students have some console up at the high school when it's continued to be needed. So really looking at what we can do to keep them in our communities. And then bringing them back to our community if they had been outplaced. At this point, we don't need to do that at this point for some of our students in our K-8 model, but that's the other goal, is make sure that we're doing it. And then FADE supports and skills to increase independence. So we're trying to give them more and more skills in that short time so that they can do some of the stuff on their own. So it was asked too, what is provided to us through NEC? What do we provide, and what does NEC provide? And really, if you're looking at it, so the blue is what they're providing to us. And I can go into the ACEs a little more, but what they're really providing is some staff training, some mentorship, and that's ongoing. That's an ongoing process all the time, because you have different student behaviors that arise. You have expertise in these, so they're meeting with each staff member that, as students change grades, they're also going to be working with different staff members, so they're working with that. Classroom systems, classroom supervision, and weekly support by the consultant that comes in, not just who we have here, but also from NEC itself up at their branch. They work with us and they track stuff. And then what we're providing is in the green. So really looking at that, our students, our classroom space, the inclusion classrooms, direct care staff, and then administrative support. Okay, so that's how that works out. Some of the components here, to go in a little more detail besides just the green, they give us an individualized and flexible education model to be able to keep our students in our district. They look at the full-time, they provide us the NEC master's level certified teacher. So that's that person who comes in and really works with our staff on a regular basis, trying to help us. Weekly clinical supervision from the senior level, that's, as I said, up higher to help us work with our staff and to work with our pairs that are working with this challenging population. Access to NEC's Autism Curriculum Encyclopedia, which is ACES. They have a curriculum that's well-versed and well-tested that they provide to us. If we didn't use them, we would not have their curriculum, and we would have to try to create something on our own, which probably wouldn't be as versed as theirs, because theirs is ever evolving, and they have a larger population that they can work with it on, and then they share with us what they've discovered. Collaboration across the areas of student programming. They offer the consultation to our related services, which include speech, occupation therapy, and physical therapy. So they are constantly in communication with our related services because they're here. So we're able to service our students in a better need. And then they collaborate with our parents. So when we have these difficult, challenging students, they're not just challenging in our schools, they're also challenging at home. And they give them some skills and some tools that they need at home so that the home troubles don't bleed over into school and school troubles don't bleed over into home. So they're really trying to do a full wraparound services, trying to make that work really well. The intensive instruction model, this is really where you're going into breaking it down a little more. All of our students in that program have a one-on-one that work with them to help that instructional ratio throughout the day. There's a lot of different things they do, including discrete trials, activity-based instruction, incidental learning. So, for instance, if a student is having a hard time with one thing, they'll use that as a learning step and really be able to work with them when the student is having that moment there and be able to make that a teachable moment for that student. Individualized modifications and accommodations are provided, so they work with the teams to really make sure that everything's taking place. Skills are systematically taught across teachers, parents, settings. Being able to hone it here, you can really make sure that those skills are reinforced throughout the year, and you have some control over that. Opportunities for peer and social interaction. That's one of the strongest factors that I can't speak highly enough. Keeping them in our community, they become a part of our community, they become friends with the community members, and they're able to better relate to non-disabled peers. When you start sending students with disabilities outside of your community, they don't have interactions with their peers. They're non-disabled peers, which makes it very hard for them to develop even further. And then parent training again, they offer the skills at home. So the last slide that I'll go into, I'm going to go into a little more detail in non-public with this, but I wanted to just go over, there was a question about cost and was it still beneficial? So what I wanted to do here is just list out how our NEC program breaks out right now. And I'm going to go into more detail of how many students are in it, their disabilities, and what's going on to break down the cost in non-public. But really what we're looking at is per pupil cost is around $60,000 for our NEC program. That's when you factor in everything that we pay. Total cost being about $415,000. That factors in salaries and benefits, FICA, everything. That's all of our costs. There could be some hidden incremental costs that I don't have listed in there, but I believe I scoured everything. I worked with Linda up at the SAU quite intensively to try to find all my numbers. And then what I decided to do was give you 2 out-of-district placements. Just 2. I could have gone into more detail, but I chose 2 that we've used in the past and we've been able to bring students back from or stop from sending out. And when you look at those 2, Birch Tree Center, the tuition, there is a reason there says tuition and services below and tuition above. So Birch Tree, it's an all-inclusive. Their services and tuition, that's what it costs. Services being OT, speech, therapy, anything they need, it's included in that cost. But if you look, their busing is much more expensive. Monarch School of New England, per pupil cost, it's tuition and services. They bill it differently. So what I decided to do was look at a couple different students and see what their services cost and then what the tuition cost as a flat rate. And the average is about $117. Their buses are cheaper. But when you take those 2 schools, knowing how many we have,
The services on the partner program, those are included in our net cost?
That's correct. That's correct.
They're not included?
No, they are included.
Okay.
They're
Your salaries and
included in-
benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, to the most part, your pairs are included, your net contract is included. The only thing I did not do, because it would be very hard to break out exactly how many hours throughout our staff, that's why I said there are some hidden costs, is some of our related services that are in there aren't in there,
Okay.
but that wouldn't, those same people who work with our next students work with all of our students. So to be able to break it down to that finite item, it would have been very hard to calculate. So I could try to go back and redo that
No,
for
no,
you,
I'm
but
just
that would have been, yeah. So if we look at that, if you take those two, and I did a little cheat sheet because I didn't want to put too many numbers in there. But just to give you an idea, if you took those two schools and you took an average, you'd be looking at about $145,000 per student is what it would cost on average. So our program, as you can see, costs about $415,000 for our students. If you took that and you took all of our students out, you'd be looking at paying well over $1 million. So your cost savings alone in our program, just in simple terms, is about $600,000, keeping our students in district with the use of the NEC program. So even if I did calculate some of those related services in, you wouldn't offset it by that much. I just wanted to go through that. I don't have much more on this unless there's some other questions. What I will do is a non-public, I can go over in more detail the students as well as some of what we're doing with them being identification.
How many years would a student be in there, starting in first grade?
So again, the goal
An
is
average, you don't have to go into it.
It depends on their disability, and it depends on their rate of learning. Sometimes students will stay in it their entire eight years or 9 years here. Sometimes they'll transition out, and it depends on if they move in. It all depends on the significant needs of the child. However, what I can tell you is however long they stay in this program, they're going to stay in that program just as long. So, meaning if they're in our program for 9 years, they're going to be out of district for 9 years if we can't keep them in. So we might be able to have them in NEC for a little while, and if that wasn't successful or we didn't keep it and you started looking at something else, you're going to have that extended cost. Okay? The goal is always to transition them back. It's very student specific. Any others?
I'll wait till non-public, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. I can answer some more there. So at that point, I hope I didn't go too fast, but I wanted to make sure that I just highlighted it because I know it had been talked about in the past, and that's pretty much everything.
What mountain is that?
That is Yosemite.
Okay.
Nice.
I only know that because it's Apple's software program.
Is that
So
where
when you
Sam is
update it,
from?
it's called Yosemite.
Is that where Sam is from?
Yes, oh yes. Old Looney Tunes.
I was
So we're
confused.
right over your head.
No. Okay, so that is the end of my report.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
we have any further questions for Mr. Byrne?
Okay.
Can I just add something? Because I can't let go of my previous role. No.
Forget all your pieces to that cake.
I can also tell you, probably the most, as your former director, probably the most anxiety, the anxious time for me with the NET kids is when they go into 9th grade. Because we fade their supports. And we still give them some consultation. They still have some paraprofessional support. I'm happy to report that the students that have transitioned over the last 2 years, because it's really your first set, started 2 years ago, are pretty successful. And I'm thinking of 3 boys in particular, who, I don't know if you know this, but you have like, is it going to work? Are you going to do this? So not only are you looking at program cost here, you're looking at an absence of out of district placement cost when they go into high school because they're able to maintain themselves and continue their learning and maintain an appropriate placement at Co-Brown, which is really great news for the families and the kids.
All right. Thanks. Anything else for student services report? All right, thank you guys. We will move on to the principal's report. Mrs. Young.
Ms.
Missy.
So, good evening. Our report begins on page 20. I want to start out just really acknowledging the hard work that our teachers put into getting ready for this school year. The 2 weeks before school started, you would have thought that we had professional days every day. There were so many staff in the building. Classrooms were pretty much entirely set up and ready to go well before we started on the 28th. We had folks meeting as teams for full days, in fact. So really a lot of work and preparation went into getting ready for the school year. And really want to thank our staff for using their own time over the summer. We started the year with 15 new people in the building. Not all of those are Northwood School employees. 11 of those are Northwood School employees. 10 teachers and 1 paraprofessional. We also have a new NEC lead teacher who's not our employee, but is a member of our staff and our community who's new. And then 3 new food services people from Fresh Picks, so 15 people altogether. So for the 11 of those who are Northwood employees, we held a half-day orientation last Monday. That was attended both by the new staff and their mentors. So I want to thank our mentors for giving up their last morning of summer to be here. And that was an effort, a combined effort from Mr. Robert, Mr. Alford, Ms. Brown, and me. We provided a lot of sort of nuts and bolts stuff, but we also tried to do some tone setting with our new staff. One thing in particular was that we encouraged them to be active and take on some leadership roles, that we hired them intentionally for their experience and their expertise. And we hope very much that they won't say, well, I'm new, I'm going to keep my head down and just see how this place works, that we really welcome the new ideas that they bring. And then we also, just because we had so many new folks, also did a couple shorter orientation sessions this week. On Tuesday after school, we went over the budget process, since that's coming right up. And yesterday we went over the supervision and evaluation system and gave some tips and tricks for setting professional goals for the year. So staff returned last Tuesday. We ate well, thank you to the school board for lunch and the PTA for breakfast. Fresh Picks also donated a salad and some sliced vegetables, and I want to give them an extra shout out because I didn't think to ask for those things until sort of the last minute. And it was great of the new food services director to come in and provide that for us. We had 2 jam-packed days of professional development. That was actually pretty well received, even though some of the topics were pretty heavy. The Chief Drolet was here doing some active shooter training with our staff, and then we had a community member who came in and did some PD around reporting child abuse and mandated reporting. So some heavy topics, but important ones. I'll let Adrian talk a little bit about what he did with the Universal team.
Good evening. So over the summer, like Jocelyn was saying, or Ms. Young was saying, we had a really dedicated staff of people in the Universal team who are coming in and meeting on PBIS, positive behavior intervention, and supports. And they were amazing. They were like machines. They literally wouldn't even stop to eat. Like, they were just working while eating. So we did, that whole group did such a great job to put together binders and other folders for everybody to have the same common terminology and knowledge of how to kind of function as a school and make sure that we're being proactive with behavior management instead of reactive. So everybody's kind of talking the same lingo. Everybody has continuity in it. So that way, no matter from an 8th grader to a kindergartner, they're going to know the terminology of what's expected behavior of walking in the hallway or how to be in the lunchroom. So we did that work, and the Universal team hit it out of the park. They did an amazing job. There's been a lot of positive feedback from everybody involved. So it was really great. We're not done. We just kind of set the foundation for it. But we got a really strong base. So it looks forward to kind of growing PBIS in the school and seeing the hard work that everybody's been doing.
Also, last Tuesday, K-3 teachers offered an open house, and I want to give a shout out to them too. That's not anything that Adrian and I asked them to do. They do that voluntarily, and it was very well attended, and I think very well appreciated by parents and kids. It helps to allay some of that anxiety and nervousness on the first day when they've had a chance to meet their teacher and see their classroom and that type of stuff. So thank you to them. And then when kids came back on Thursday, it went really smoothly. I think, last year our buses left about 45 minutes late on the first day of school. This year they left 2 minutes late. I'll take it. And then since then they've been leaving like a minute or two early. So it was a really smooth opening of school. For us, certainly it felt smooth. This is our third one. The first year we didn't really know what we were doing, so we were just grateful to survive the day. Last year was really tough.
First year we had an accident.
Felt great, yeah. And this year felt great, but it's not just us. That's been echoed by some staff members who have been here for a while too, that this felt like a really smooth opening of school. And again, I give credit to everybody working really hard to prepare, and then also just pitching in those first 2 days. We had so many people helping out with extra duties and supervising in the hallway and helping kindergarten and first graders find their way places and new students. So everybody really worked hard to get it going. So that's the good news. The not great news, moving on, is that we right now do not have any 8th grade advisors. Michelle Alifat and Dana Kelly had been signed up as co-advisors. Michelle resigned. Dana has decided that some home conflicts will make it so she can't do that. So we are advertising the need to our staff for 8th grade advisors and hoping that we'll have new nominees next time. You want to talk about open house?
Yeah, so open house is going on the same kind of format as it did our first year, where we'll have an hour for like K to 4 to be inside, or they'll be actually eating, while 5 to 8 is inside, going through classrooms and meeting, and then they'll flip it over. We'll still have the raffle for that. We're going to have some community vendors here again, so that way so people can kind of sign up for the library will be here, the rec program. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be cooking from the PD in the fire department. PD, right? Yeah. All right, good. So one thing with that is I would actually like to request a donation from the school board towards the food open house. If
How
possible.
much are you requesting?
$1 million. By 1 million, I meant $250.
I make the motion for $1 million. For $250?
$250.
I make a motion for $250 to go towards the open house on Tuesday, September 18th.
This is to buy food.
Yep. Food and probably like some forks. And
Out of the
stuff.
school board budget.
Yeah, I can imagine it's come out of the school board line.
We have lines in there to.
I'll second it.
I think when we make our budget, we should budget for these things, because we
Yeah.
do it every year and it always comes out of those lines, but might as well
Yep.
budget for it.
So.
Sorry, there was a
Brian-
second. Is there any
yeah,
discussion?
Brian seconded.
Yeah. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Gracias. Appreciate that.
And I believe that is all we have.
That's all we got.
All right. Sweet. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Young or Mr. Ralph?
Yeah.
Alfred?
Actually, I have a question. It's related to the access to the building. I read that the teachers can come in 2 weeks in advance. Does that include weekends? No. Is there, it's been expressed that there's some concern that they feel like they should have access to the school on weekends and they don't. And they were, curious if the policy would be changed or if it was possible to be changed.
It's really a staffing issue. We have an alarm that needs, obviously, to have a code that's kept confidential. So we can't just give that code to everybody to
So it's a
deactivate the alarm, and there's no
Code, not a
custodial.
fob or anything like that?
It's both. So you use the fob and the key to get in the building, but then you have to deactivate the alarm.
So you can't just, so why is the fob not available?
Well, I think
20
it's that they need to deactivate the alarm is the issue, I think, too, right? If you don't-
Is that an issue during the school year, like normally on weekends? I'm sure sometimes people come in to get a few things done, but.
No, the building is not generally open on weekends. Once in a great while, if we're already having a guy here to do mowing or something, and somebody asks if we have somebody here anyway, then Mr. Tom will say, yes, go ahead, but generally the building is not staffed with a custodian on weekends.
So he has to be here for people to be able to get in?
A custodian does, or somebody does, yes, to deactivate the alarm.
Well, I
Go ahead.
didn't know you did. In the past, we had the same request, and we figured one way of doing that was maybe have a part-time custodian that would work Friday night and schedule them Saturday morning, and teachers who did want to come in did have to get authorization from the principal or assistant principal and say, okay, so the custodian would have a list, there's going to be a few teachers coming to go into their room or whatever. But we can't have it, I wouldn't want it open like all day long, and they decide to come in, they come in. But we did schedule things in the past that was kind of, I guess I thought was fairly simple, that you got authorization to be here, and we just rearranged custodian hours, that they would work a Saturday morning for 4 hours or whatever, that was all. But people who, they come in
Well-
and fix their, go ahead.
Well, I mean, make copies, do things that they're not rushing around to do during the school week. This is just what I'm told. I'm not a teacher, but people express concern that they're rushed during the week. They're professionals, they're adults. There's worry that they're kind of
So
being,
you're talking about during the school year, not preschool, like before the school year, in the summer, like.
during the school year, yeah, they have
Okay,
no
all right,
access
all right.
to the school. I just saw that, they had access to it 2 weeks before, so I assumed.
They had
people were
access
here.
far more than that. It was just people tended to come in those
Yeah.
2 weeks before.
Okay. It's just that there's concern that they're kind of feeling like they're not maybe trusted to come in on their own, and they're worried that they might make messes or that things might get disrupted. And I'm not really sure. This is just going off what has been said to me, but that their lives would be a lot easier if they were allowed to come in on the weekend and get work done, and that they've been flatly told that no, that's not going to happen. So
Well,
I'm just curious if
it's-
that's a policy that has always been, or if it could be looked at. Because I think keeping teachers happy is a part of keeping them here, and people who have taken the initiative to want to work extra, I mean, they shouldn't be working a ton of hours, but everybody knows that teachers take work home. So if they want to come in here and have a quiet place to do it, I see that as a bad thing.
I kind of make a mark when I go through the agenda, and I did make a mark saying I wanted to praise them, like most teachers were in the building a significant amount in 2 weeks prior, and they don't get paid, they're not asked to come in. So when she just brought that up, I was thinking, geez, I guess they thought they always had a way to get in here if there was something they wanted to get done. But under control,
Right.
it's not open all
Within
weekend long.
reason.
All right, maybe it's something we can figure.
Well, the board certainly could budget
Yeah.
during budgeting for an upgrade to your security system, so you can assign individual codes to your staff. You certainly could consider that.
I'm surprised that security system wasn't improved over the years. It's terrible.
Well, it's a different level of system when you use a key fob and a punch code. Or you can even use a key fob that identifies which staff member has the key fob. But it's an update. I mean, there's a cost to that. You certainly could have your facilities committee look into that.
Is there any way maybe we could shift around janitor schedules to have someone here occasionally on the weekend, just to let people in too, instead of, like instead of working Friday, they would work Saturday or something?
We can certainly ask. I don't know the legality of compelling them to do
Oh, right,
that.
right, yeah.
And certainly, in terms of part-time employees, we only have one part-time custodian, so the onus would really fall on him
Right.
if we're looking at part-time.
So I have a question, security-wise, but I'll have to ask it in non-public.
Yeah, we can do that at the end.
I hate to be the old
Yep.
blankety blank in the room, but
You are the
we
old
have a
student.
schedule, and we say we want somebody scheduled. Your schedule is blank, 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 and Saturday morning, 8 to 12. There's the job. I mean, I don't understand this, where we have to ask everybody, gee, can you do this for me?
Well,
Can you
I
work?"
think it's,
I mean,
I
you
don't
don't
think it's
have
fair to do that to somebody after we've hired them. If
Oh.
you want to open the job and say, this is what
Right.
the job description is, I'd be, yeah, that makes sense to me. But like, for the people that are already here, we can't, I think it'd be pretty crappy to change your schedule to, hey, you're working Saturdays now, right? It's not,
or we budget, or we figure out,
oh, yeah, yep.
what that costs us every 4 hours, what's the cost gonna be? And we already have probably 1,500 or whatever is in the budget this year.
Yep.
We probably could make it once a month, they can get in and get this something done or whatever. It'd be worth, if if people are bringing it out to
Yeah, I
us.
mean, we don't, definitely shouldn't be dissuading people if they want to come in and work.
Okay.
Yeah. What's that? Were you all done with your report?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions then? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the curriculum director's report.
So as Ms. Young mentioned, we have a lot of new teachers here, and I've been working very hard to get to know them, both for the sake of simply getting to know the new teachers, but also to make sure that I have the relationships that form the basis for instructional coaching, where teachers need to have a trusting relationship with their instructional coach. I've also been working to make sure that teachers are comfortable with their mentors and checking in, because I'm now responsible for the mentoring program. I did participate in the orientation, again, talking with teachers about the standards-based grading system that we're moving to, and discussing with teachers and answering questions and having conversations about where is the school right now and where are we moving to. I also participated in the technology director's professional development session on August 22nd. Again, that was also around standards-based grading and using the technology, but also, again, how will this look, and how will we be assessing students, and what does that look like? So I was having more conversations, again, with teacher teams, and making myself available to answer questions and concerns that teachers had, and making sure that everybody felt supported and was positive with this move that we're making. On August 24th, I attended the New Hampshire DOE's information session on play-based kindergarten. Melanie Engel also attended that. And I think that we were very pleased with what we heard. The state, at least for upper grades, we know is moving towards competencies, and that's very much a philosophy that's grounded in constructivist theory, the idea that people learn best by doing. So with the older grades, we're seeing, at the upper level, we're seeing the competencies. And with the younger students, I think what's interesting is we're seeing play-based kindergarten more as that people learn by doing. So what does that mean when you're in kindergarten? And it incorporates a lot of theories from Piaget and Vygotsky. So it's really talking about human development and what does that look like at the kindergarten level. So I think it's very much aligned to that constructivist theory of education, K through 12. Melanie and I are definitely looking forward to implementing some of that, and we'll be working on that together over the course of the year. There are a lot of things that I'll be doing over the next month. I've spent the first week checking in on teachers, making sure that everybody has what they need, walking into classrooms along with Mr. Alfred and Ms. Young, getting to know the instructional styles of our teachers, checking in to see who might need some instructional coaching and having some of those conversations and already beginning that process to make sure, again, that everybody feels supported. I'll also be working on planning parent information sessions for their standards-based report card, so that way parents have a better understanding of what will their report card look like, what information will it give them, as well as the fact that this is not probably going to be the report card that we'll be staying with. Over the next few years, we'll be transitioning into that competency-based report card, so making sure that parents understand that this is a move that we are making as a school to get that message out to the community. Again, I'm working as an instructional coach with the idea of increasing student engagement. One of the things that came out of the leadership retreat here at the school over the summer was the idea that we are going to increase student achievement by increasing student engagement. So by focusing on that engagement, as an instructional coach, that's how I'm going to be supporting the school as we look to increase our achievement levels and making sure that every child is reaching and attaining at high levels. I'm going to be supporting the K-2 teachers and the Title I math tutors in early October. I'll be planning a session where they will learn about the assessing math concepts, online assessments that consist of having an interview with the students and entering information online. What's exciting about that is that at that K-2 level, we're not just getting data on how our students are doing, but the assessments also come with intervention books. And they're differentiated, so that way our high-achieving students who have already mastered certain concepts can have different activities that will help push them further, but we've also got some activities that will help our students reach grade level, so that way we can make sure that everybody is moving forward. Just like with reading, we want to make sure that all of our students are on grade level as soon as possible, so that way we can help them align for success at Co-Brown. That's really ultimately the goal. And in addition to that, I'll be attending the New Hampshire School Administrators Association Conference on Best Practices in Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment in September, later on this month, the 24th and the 25th. So that way, there are usually speakers, workshops that will be presented, which will allow me to come back to the school, and it will enable me to better act as an instructional leader. So that's my own professional development. And then starting in October, I will be increasing my involvement with the PLCs and the data meetings. One of the goals for the year is looking at data and student work, so that we're not just looking at data that comes from different standardized assessments, but we're also looking at data that teachers get from their own assessments, especially if we have common assessments across a grade level. Teachers should be able to use that data to make instructional decisions.
Would we be able to surface any of that data to us so we can see progress?
Usually, my experience has usually been that that data is usually used more by teachers, so that way they get a better sense of what instructional decisions they can make to ensure that all their students are achieving at a high level.
Certainly, I think one of the takeaways will be, we will have the statewide assessment data for you next month. We just got it last Thursday, I think. And so Kat's working on putting that in some graphs, because I know you like graphs. So one of the things that we're really interested in looking at is how are our kids performing on that compared to how are our kids performing in the classroom. So that type of information we can certainly give you. You know, the benefit of standardized testing is that it's easy to talk about in certain terms of percentages and percentiles. It's much harder to talk about classwork like that. But as we look at student work and develop our standards-based report card, really getting more clarity in our definition of proficient, and so we can hopefully speak to you more knowledgeably about how our kids are measuring as proficient on a standardized test versus the work that we're giving them.
Thanks. Anyone else have any questions? You good?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I will interject and let the board know, just because I'm on the committee that puts together the curriculum best practice conference, that the topic this year is personalization. So, and that'll be across elementary, middle, and high school. So that should be interesting. It'll still have some competency kind of themes to it, but a lot of it will be about extending learning opportunities and personalizing education for all our students.
And Mr. Alford will be going one day, and I'll be going one day, too.
That's why the people get in.
All right, thanks. Moving on, we have some policies. We have a first reading for policy DJE, JJB, and JJIC. And a second reading from policy BCB, BEDB, and JLCF. I think all of these, what's that? think all of these were supposed to be in our packet last meeting, but they didn't get there, so we're seeing them again now.
Right, I think I gave you hard copies last time.
Yep.
and then-
Yep, so, I think we should probably take them one at a time. Hope everybody had a chance to read them. We'll start off with policy DJE, the bidding requirements. Do we have a motion to move this to second reading?
I'll make a motion to move policy DJE to a second reading.
Second?
All right, is there any discussion about this?
We made that change.
Is that basically the only change we're seeing here, is changing the bidding value through?
Changing the
And,
bidding, and then you added the child nutrition program based on your food service audit from 2 years ago.
And
And that
going
this-
to the superintendent instead
And
of
that
the board.
they're sealed, and they're going to the superintendent, so
Yeah.
you're gonna open them on the day of,
The 2 o'clock on a Friday usually it is,
okay, and then that'll give you a chance to
yeah. And then we'll make
put
a bid
together
sheet
something
to,
for us.
yeah, making the front sheet that puts out the bid and make the recommendation.
Sounds good to me. Anything else on these, on this one? All in favor of moving this to second reading? Aye.
Hey.
Opposed, none? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is policy JJIB, interscholastic athletics. This also needs to be moved to second reading.
Make a motion to move policy JJIB to a second reading.
Second?
Any discussion on this one?
Nope, just that. Okay, I think that's always been that way. Our athletic teams are under the guidance of NHIAA.
Yep. Yeah, we have that on there.
And when I read the whole thing out, it doesn't look the same. I'm always saying NHIAA. And I had a... Okay, yep.
It was the revision here, though.
I think
Just
the
the-
revision was.
just the
in next.
appendix?
I think it's the appendix in the
Just
outline.
adding. Okay.
I think the actual, the meaty revision is on the next policy.
Right.
The
Okay.
ongoing revisions.
Yes. Okay, all in favor of moving this to second reading?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Policy JJIC, eligibility for school athletics.
I'll make a motion to move policy JJIC to a second reading.
Yep.
Second?
Any discussion on this one?
I saw it, but I believe that, like, especially in this fall semester, they'll get their progress report sometime, like, after 5 or 6 weeks or something.
5 weeks.
All right, so it'd be almost like halfway through the season, then if there's a problem, the student would have to take care of school first. Okay.
Yep.
It used to be that it was last spring's, March last spring made you eligible for the fall. So we changed that back the way it used to be.
Any other discussion on this one? All right, all in favor of moving this to second reading?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. So the next batch of policies, this is the second reading of them. So we will be moving to adopt these policies or not. We'll start with policy BCB, board member conflict of interest.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy BCB, more board member conflicts of interest.
Second?
Any discussion on this?
Nepotism sounds like New York and
Pretty-
Massachusetts.
Pretty straightforward, all right. All in favor of adopting this policy? Aye. Aye. Policy is adopted unanimously. Next up, policy BEDB, agenda preparation and dissemination.
I'll make a motion to adopt policy BEDB, agenda preparation and dissemination.
Second?
Any discussion on this?
No.
With that?
Check your days real quick. This was a confusing policy, just want you to check your days, where we had 7, 5.
5.
Almost.
Agenda will be posted 5, yep.
Yep. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Yep. All right, all in favor of adopting policy BEDB?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, policy is adopted. And finally, the wellness policy, policy JLCF.
Make a motion to adopt policy JLCF, the wellness policy.
Second?
Any discussion on this one? So I wasn't here, I don't think, for the first reading of this one, because I think we were processing.
You weren't.
I don't think I was.
Right.
Was there some discussion, I know Ms. Young at one point had wanted to think about, if you look at, I think it's the, sorry, let me find where it was. The
It
thing about
was
having gym.
physical activity goals B,
B,
and we
right.
did not change that.
Okay, was that, so that was discussed as something, is it still something you want to do, or something you're?
It would give us greater flexibility in theory, but when you actually put pen to paper and try to schedule it, it doesn't work. So
Okay.
it ended up being kind of a moot point.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to check in on that. Okay, any other discussion on this one? All in favor of adopting policy JLCF?
Aye.
Policy is adopted unanimously. Those went pretty quick. Okay. More policies to come. Next meeting?
We had a policy committee meeting today. We did some modifications to KF, which is your community access school use policy. You'll have to have a discussion in your next board meeting about the changes that we'll put in. And then we also, I'm going to look rather than go from memory. We looked at your student conduct, your student discipline and due process, your Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, student records access policy. We looked at access to public school programs by non-public charter school and home educated students. There's been a change. It just used to be home educated students. So there's been a change in the law, so we give those and then access to non-public and charter school students too. And I think the philosophy of the legislature with that change, I think, it's hard to guess when there's so many of them, is that any student that's in your district that is attending a private school or charter school is also paying property taxes either directly or indirectly, and should have access to your public school programs.
That's always been the case, hasn't it?
Charters and privates weren't so well
Oh, okay.
spelled out.
For homeschool kids.
Right.
Okay.
And as sort of an offshoot, after you adopt that policy, I may suggest that we include that policy to students when parents choose to homeschool, so they understand that they can still be part-time access students at the school. I think that would be fair to those families. I think it would help your school, with students. So I'll bring that back after you adopt it.
Okay. So when is the next policy committee meeting?
The next policy committee meeting will be in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
Directly
so-
before the board meeting.
It's usually once a month, isn't
Oh,
it?
once a month, I'm sorry.
You're in policy committee,
It'll be
right?
next month.
Yes.
October 4th.
I'm sorry, it'll be October 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Winslow joined us tonight for policy committee.
Great.
And
Okay, good. I'm
Mr.
glad you did
Root.
that.
Brian came to focus on policy KF, but Mr. Ruth had sent an email that he's going to be late, so Brian got to do the whole thing. It was so exciting for him, I'm sure. And a lot of the policies today were boilerplate, like, legislative changes and this and that. So,
KF's a good one to get at, though, but I'm glad you bring that up.
well, if you can get, I got to sort of say I'm proud of the board. JJIC took years
Yeah, it did.
with many changes. I'll let the new board members know that there was a clause in that said a student needed to maintain a 78 average. Why? We were never sure. So Dr. Johnson smithed it once, I smithed it once, Dave smithed it, so you've adopted it, and I'm proud of you. That hung on there for a couple of years.
That has been a long time.
Did we vote on this?
We're all set. No.
Okay. Thought we got interrupted.
No, I did.
Okay.
We did vote on that already, yes. We approved it. All right, we're going to move on to the superintendent's report then. Mr.
So, it's not marked, but hold on for a second.
Page 43, I believe.
Well, let's say right after, yeah, page 43, you'll see my interaction with the town administrator. Actually, my interaction actually starts on page 44. When I asked her over the phone, can you check to see if the selectmen are interested in a joint public hearing? You can see her response there. Then the email in between is sort of not germane to the topic. But then if you go up to the top of page 43, you can, I'll skip some of it. I spoke with the Board of Selectmen regarding joint public hearings for this resource officer, and they would prefer if the board held the public hearings and a representative from the selectmen, likely me, under one board member will attend. So there is your follow-up.
So at one point, we're going to have materials prepared for what we would discuss at a public hearing. Is that, do we have those?
I have created a draft of a, what could be shared as a PowerPoint. I shared that with Mrs. Hanovan, and we went back and forth. She asked me to add a couple different things. I think I took care of that and sent it back over, so I said it was really going to be up to the board at this point to sit down and see if they wanted to hone it, change anything else to it, and I'd make the tweaks.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been put together pretty well.
So,
Do you want to review that at your next meeting?
yeah, I think that'd be great. Let's get that on our agenda for next meeting, and then maybe we can review the slides and decide if we're going to do this, and if so, we'll schedule it. Does that make sense to do at our next meeting?
Okay.
All right, so that's going to be...
So next on page 45, this has not been sent yet. I wrote it ahead of time for the board to review in hopes that you'll accept a $200 donation that we received from Hodges Development Corporation at the SAU for the Northwood School in memory of Miss Linda Gare, who passed away this summer. So I'm looking for the board to accept that donation.
Make a motion to accept the donation from Hodges Development Corporation for, in memory of, sorry, let me find it, Miss Linda Gare, and with thanks.
Second that. Any discussion?
Where would we put the $200 to the teachers fund or the school?
Yeah, did they have any preference, do you know?
They did not list a preference. I think they left it up to the board to service students.
Cookout. You good?
I think it's really up to the discretion of the people sitting at the table.
Usually be up to this, well, discretion of the principal, probably.
Does anybody, I see you wrote for 14 years that she worked for the school district. I don't know who she is. Does anybody here know? Did anybody here work with her?
I mean, I know she came in and substituted. I met her when she I mean, you've got people in the audience.
Okay.
She came in and substituted for a few years. I think she retired the year before I came.
4 years ago?
No, I think 5.
She retired the year I was hired. Oh, okay.
Okay, so,
5 years, then she
yeah.
subbed.
So, right, then she subbed. So we met her briefly. Mr. Alford and Ms. Young probably know her a bit because she subbed in the building.
Aye. We didn't vote.
We didn't vote, oh, you're right. All right, sorry. So there's a motion to accept the donation. All in favor of accepting donation? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Never mind, I got it. And I'll send that letter out in the morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll go, so legal opinion, Mr. Wells looked at the legal update and wanted some opinions about something. I did call the attorney. She said, you know, that's unless you have specific questions, there'll be a general legal update going out for free to all the clients of the law firm. So I opted for that one. That should come out in the next month. Attorney Graham will be writing about the default budget and other topics, and we'll be sharing that information with the board. So there really was I didn't see the need to spend the money if we're going to get it for free. I don't know.
Sure. Yep.
And then just a quick update from me. The SAU Twitter page is up and running with all the anxiety that I think I've told people about at the joint board of tweeting.
What's your handle?
NHSAU44.org.
N8
No, just
SAU44?
yeah, yep.
Okay. At NH.
I think it's a little easier to learn how to tweet when we didn't have any followers. Now we have followers, so that's good, I guess. I think I told the staff during opening day that it was difficult. It was a little scary for me, and I'm pretty tech okay, but you think about how people use Twitter in the public eye right now is a little. So.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I've tweeted some things. I think I have like 5 tweets out there in 7 days.
You have 8 followers.
I have 8 followers. I started with 0, so I've had an 800% increase.
What he's not telling you is that's just the office. He made the office follow him.
No, that's not true. Mr. Seuss is following, and I think Northwood School is following, or I'm following them. Just general, it's hot. Make sure people drink water. And then I made a little reference to Fortnite. And the fact that when Northwood starts, the detoxification process will start for all the kids. As I watched my son move his Xbox down to the basement and clean up his desk for school. And I did tweet that we had no phones and internet, so people didn't become frustrated. The 8 followers that we're going to call. So I'm hoping we get some more followers. It'll be nice piece. I managed that. We do have our Facebook page up. We haven't done a lot of work with that yet. The Mrs. West will be taking charge of that. And the big news is if you go to the SAU website, the first SAU newsletter is out there. So you can go to the SAU website, and on the home page it'll have the first edition of the SAU newsletter. And we're happy to have that out there. I think that will help. And
So I did post that to Facebook as well.
And so did Nottingham.
Good.
Right, I sent it to you, right? Yeah, I did send the Facebook moderators the link in all 3 districts so they could post that. I think one of our themes is, to make sure that we're present in your schools and communicating and have different ways to communicate and be communicated to. I'm happy with the progress they're making on that. I don't know if I've told all the board members. I did make it to every classroom except kindergarten, but I saw the kids in phys ed because they weren't in kindergarten in Northwood, and actually every classroom in Stratford and Nottingham too, which doesn't sound like a lot until they start asking questions, and then you're there for like 2 hours. I will say that I enjoyed, I came and talked to your faculty during opening day, and I don't know if they didn't look totally used to that. And they just had their active shooter training and their mandated reporter training, so I tried to be a little light and engaging because I knew that those topics can be not light and engaging. But I gave a short little talk about changes they'd see at the SAU and presence within the building, and it went pretty well in all 3 schools as a theme, and so we hope we're able to find the time to continue to support the buildings and spend the time here that is so important. And that's it for me. Actually, I can do that. Is it under correspondence?
It's not on our agenda.
Yes, it is. Oh, it's in, yeah, you got a non-meeting after.
Okay. We can just talk about that then. I just want to make sure there's nothing we have to do. We already responded. There's no, next thing to do is just.
No, I just gave you a copy to that to let you know that I responded saying they've acknowledged your intent to bargain.
Okay, I just want to make sure,
And then tomorrow, Mrs. Boudreau provided me names of the negotiating team today. I'm at the commissioners meeting tomorrow, so Monday, the members of the negotiating teams from both the board and Northwood will get an email from Mrs. West trying to schedule the first meeting.
Excellent.
And then that first meeting, we'll talk about subsequent meetings, and we'll also likely establish ground rules. So that's coming.
No, thank you. That's great. So, do you want to hear the bad news? Half of your Twitter followers are in this room right now.
I think that's good news. Because it's sort of safe. Who's fault? Oh, you. See? But I had, no, Chairman Boygan, that's good news, because last week I had no Twitter.
All right. Very well.
I'll retweet you so that people follow you.
Mr. Sousa retweeted me across the state for the Fortnite comment, so I imagine we'll get some followers eventually.
Do we have any further questions for our superintendent tonight? Nope. Anything on the bills and manifests? We're all happy with that?
I went through them.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure nothing came up.
No, that was a question.
They're here
I was just
if
curious.
anybody else wants to see
I
them.
was happy to see they did do a lot of repair work on the basketball courts down below, the pipes, and they put in some new, I didn't even know they existed, new guards for wheelchairs on the wheelchair ramp up there. It was all brand new. They fixed some other things on the chain link, so it was good to see.
Right, thank you. Next up, we have some new business. First off is a homeschool survey. You prepared for that? Or?
No, there was going to be, I think at the last meeting, Mr. Ruth brought up the possibility of a homeschool survey. So I placed that on the agenda. We said we're going to have a short discussion about it. That's what you said.
Okay.
I did look at your homeschool numbers. So quickly, not in any depth. Last year you had 21 homeschoolers. This year you have 24. But when I look quickly at the homeschool registrations, it doesn't appear to be students who are leaving Northwood and going into homeschools. The majority seems to be kids who are homeschooled right along. I do think that does tie into your policy development and your access. I mean, we know that homeschooling is becoming more prevalent. I mean, not extremely. But it really is a family choice on whether folks want to homeschool their kids. And there's so many programs out there now to support homeschooling. But what I would like, and of course the board needs to approve this, is that eventually when your new policy is done, is that when we approve a homeschooler, we send the family a copy of that policy. Because that really does explain access to the public school. And I think that could be a benefit. So, another component of homeschooling is some people in my homeschool letters, it's very clear that there's a privacy issue for them. Right. It's in their intent. Right. And so I don't know if creating a survey, for one, with such a small group, is going to give us any. Maybe you got two people, you got a small group, and then on top of that, you potentially have some people who won't respond based on their rights. So I don't know, if I did a lot of work on a survey, why you're homeschooling this, that, if I don't know what the purpose of that would be.
I said, I guess if there had been any type of surveys, when I was here a few years ago, it didn't seem like there was a lot of homeschooling, but over the years I've noticed, it seems to be increasing. So I guess is there some perceived problem with the school? I think the school has improved over the last 6 or 7 years as it seems to be getting better all the time. So I didn't know if there was any complaints to anybody why they homeschool their children. And they have the perfect legal right. I shouldn't be asking them why they're doing it, but I just didn't know if anything.
I would probably homeschool my kids if I was able to, just because it's a one-to-one teaching environment. Because my wife's a teacher and could do that, right? But it's just
okay. And I didn't want to make it.
I'm not cut out for that.
I would never be. I would never do it. So.
Neither was she, unfortunately. So.
Right. No, that's fine.
I will tell you over the years that I think I've had one family who was unhappy with the dynamic, not necessarily the school, and they chose to homeschool. But I think that's one in my 5 years here that I know about. generally, I can tell you when I'm dealing with, when I was doing student services and I was dealing with student service issues, I mean, there are times, not necessarily Northwood, although I think that one time, in other places where parents have to deal with a dynamic and they choose to homeschool, and that's always, my response is that that is not our recommendation, because it isn't. I want conflicts worked out as best they can, and students terminating school. I don't want to, because I don't think that's the right reason, although I'm trying not to judge that. But that is never our recommendation. I know that it is never our recommendation in special education. So I don't know if that
I'm
helps you
satisfied.
feel comfortable.
Anyone else want to have a discussion on this? Any comments? Okay, someone keep an eye on it at least. Just for clarification, we get in our census homeschool numbers. These numbers are only for the homeschool people that register with the SAU, right? They could register with a different,
Yeah, the law's
Agency.
written they could register with a different agency and not notify the SAU.
in which case we just wouldn't even know about that. Okay, just want to make that clear.
Are they required to register, though?
With somebody. I think.
Somebody,
They
okay.
can, yeah. Yep.
More to
They
add.
only have to do it once, which means if they register to homeschool in Rochester and then they move to Northwood, they don't have to re-register.
Okay.
Right. So we wouldn't know. And then there used to be a yearly, they would have to assess and report yearly, and they don't have to do that as of 2010.
Right.
Um,
Like technically they're supposed to assess, but they just
But they don't have to
they don't have to
provide it
provide
to
the
us.
records to anybody. Yeah.
Which they do have access to use our assessments if they choose to during the state testing. Not very often do parents utilize that.
Right, and they can come to me and ask for help with the yearly assessment too, in which, we'll take a look at what the school offers and offer them access to that. That doesn't happen too often either.
And the only case that doesn't pertain to is special ed. Special education services are not included in homeschooling.
Okay.
That, I just say that to
Right,
make sure that's
so
very
in the,
clear.
yeah, in the special education rules, it's very clear that when a family chooses to homeschool a kid, that the district's obligation to provide a free and appropriate public education is terminated, and can't be held liable. In fact, it even complicates things when students that are special ed students leave and go home to homeschool. When they come back in, we want to reevaluate them for
Restart the
eligibility, not to be difficult, but to see what their levels are, and to identify them, so.
I just thought of a question, I thought I was done.
Yeah.
Is there any advantage to knowing how many we have? So if we have homeschools, if we thought we had 20, is there any advantage in the numbers for us with any benefits from the state? On
There is
aid
no
or anything?
monetary advantage to you. There is advantage when kids are transferring to 8th and 9th grade from a fiscal planning standpoint.
Right.
Meaning if we know about those families, we can reach out and say, hey, and we know they're going to 8th and 9th grade, are you considering homeschooling through high school? Or are you going to consider attending
Right.
Cole Brown in Northwood's case?
So we can budget for
And
that.
so then we can
Yeah.
budget for that. So there's some benefit to that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
On that point, I did want to point out, I forgot to mention it earlier, maybe there's no time to, but I did sign 3 new students into Co-Brown today in our packet. So 3 transfers or,
They're starting late, or that just happened?
no,
to be
I'd have to look at the
It
specifics,
doesn't
but
really matter.
It's
yeah,
the
one of them
timing
was
of
just a
the-
transfer from another town, so
Yeah.
like we're just picking up the bill now, and the other, 2 of them, one of them
Yeah.
was from somewhere
Well, we
else.
know what we budgeted for students at Co-Brown,
Right.
and now, after this summer, do we have we'll get a total, I guess, in the next meeting.
Right.
So
Right.
we'll be able to say how many came in, how many left,
Yep.
we'll figure, okay.
Yeah, you'll get a report from Cole Brown coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe not the next meeting, maybe the meeting after, I'm not sure.
It's next month.
But I would guess that these students started the paperwork at well, they did in August, so they started the school year there. It's just because of the 2-week delay in the meetings and getting the paperwork that you're not going to see those forms until they come to us.
Anyway, I just want to point that out, just because I know it's good to keep in mind how many kids are coming and going. Not that we see the kids are going. all the
Their
time.
addresses and see if
I
there's a
did.
real house there?
Well, I didn't fucking buy.
You didn't?
No. All right, next up,
Somebody who,
we have a strategic plan review. This is our monthly review of our strategic plan.
remember that page number?
Mr. Rubin,
47
I
or
don't think we
something?
have it
Oh,
in
that's school board
our
goals.
packet. That's our goals.
Yeah.
We'll do that too.
Okay.
Just a reminder, this is I don't know if you guys bring your plan around with you everywhere, like I do.
It's a pretty planner, I keep it.
I'm not sure what the best way to review this is. I don't want to like just read it. I guess I'll just throw it out here for now that if anyone, you have,
I can share with Amy.
you remembered it? You got it? You got it all stored?
It was on page 2, second line.
So again, this is a 5-year plan, so I'm not expecting we're gonna attack all of this stuff now, but I do like having it on the agenda just so that we can refer to it and keep it in mind. That said, if anyone has any issues or comments or like to look at
This,
Some of these
I mean,
things-
this is really, have we got this anywhere posted around the school, or like on a bulletin boards, the school board's bulletin board or anything, or just?
There's a pile of them in the office
okay.
available for people to look at and take. Every staff member has received a copy, and it's posted on our website.
Great.
There's some in the town library, there's some in the town hall,
Yes.
there's some in the town rec, and the selectmen all have a copy too.
do we
That sounds like a setup, like at the congressional hearings today. You guys had the answers to my question.
what about the budget committee? Did we get them all to the budget committee?
I don't think we did.
But
You think
I
they'd be
didn't.
interested
I
in
did
that?
not. I would. I think they would be interested.
I think at your next quarterly meeting, we sort of, I think Brian and I like the process of him coming in and meeting with us about the budget before he goes. so
I
we
found that
just
very
wanted to give
helpful
him a
and would like
stack.
to do that.
Yeah, so grab a stack then, that'd be
yeah.
great to hand out to
That's
them.
that's a great idea.
The other thing is we'll have a stack, I imagine, at town meeting as well, so especially the school portion of it. So there'll be enough. We have a stack somewhere.
Just remind me.
Yeah.
I have a stack, I have plenty.
Oh, you still have plenty.
Oh, I have
was gonna say,
plenty.
You gotta make them out
But
there.
You're gonna,
Expensive.
I mean, it's one of those things. I just wrote a note to having me put one in my board packet every time, so.
I mean, I'm just flipping through
Yeah.
the headers, and I think a bunch of the things you've already talked about tonight are in line with the goals in ways. Engage and empower students, goal 1. The update Ms. Brown gave, play-based education and changes. You know, I think it dovetails in. I think it's goal 4, hire the best staff. We just had an excellent personnel report, so I think we're operating within the framework that we're supposed to be here, so.
Have you found it helpful, Ms. Young, at all? Or is everything just too high level at this point?
It's helpful in that it aligns a lot of what we're already doing, and gives us direction as we continue to go. One of the things that we had talked about with staff, kind of right off the bat last Tuesday morning, was that it feels like we have a lot of different initiatives going on, but they really are overlapping in many ways, and they do all have the same intent, which is to raise our student achievement and engagement in school. So it's helpful to remind us that what we're doing are not all discrete initiatives.
Well, I might make a suggestion.
Sure.
I think it would be important for the board to get a report from us. I mean, yeah, you notice some things as we go along that fit in, but it might be helpful if Ms. Young and Mr. Alford and whoever else wants to join us sits down and sort of creates a list of benchmarks that they're doing that supports the strategic plan, so you can see the alignment, and we can work on that. I wouldn't look for it in 2 weeks, but we could
Sure, yeah.
certainly talk about that next
That'd be
week.
great.
I think that would be helpful. That way you can see.
Yep. All right, anything else on the strategic plan at this point? All right. Committee reports.
You
Yep.
went too fast. You
Oh,
didn't
go
say
ahead.
anything else for new business.
What do
I
you
have
mean?
I have a question.
All right.
We got a survey from the SAU. that we have to do.
Yes, the
It
audit.
said board members, and then the last line, it says signed by the chairman, so.
I got an
I'm giving
answer.
this to you.
I have my own copy of it already.
Right.
This is from the audit.
I thought it was
company.
just the chairman were supposed to do it, and not all of us.
I think it's the audit company for.
I know who
and
it is,
And I
but
think
then
they
I
want
was-
us, I think they want input from anybody who's
Individual,
willing to.
okay, but you don't have to sign it.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I'll sign mine. Yeah, no, I
And
think
then
you can
got
sign
another
it.
email instructing you how to send it
To
back
mail it,
directly
yes.
to the
yeah,
auditors.
Yep.
For the other audit company would send it via email, so I could like do it digitally and email it back. But
Well, I think as time goes on, it'll become simpler with the new, having a new auditor is an overwhelming process for both the staff and I think the auditors. Because where your old auditor had so much experience with you that they would say, we'd like this from this month, and this month. And this auditor is like, we want things from all months.
right,
So
catching up to do.
it's a lot more work right now for them too, and they're great. And I've chatted with them and I did my questionnaire, and they've been in quite a bit. So it's just I think you'll probably see emails.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, committee reports. So our policy committee met. Any other committees meet in the meantime since our last meeting?
Hey, Brian and I met with the, he already told you.
Policy committee, yep. Athletics, athletics, facilities, we got no facilities update. What's going on there? Trying to think what other ones we have.
We reviewed the facilities used by the public. And then there was something else before I came in, a couple of other ones, I don't know what you.
Yeah, and Mr. Rooning brought them up.
Yep.
The 3 or 4 other ones, one of them being the homeless and charter school and private school and
Okay. Old business, we have board goals review. If you guys like, what I'll do is just read through the top level part, and if anyone has any comments or questions or suggestions as to how we can better achieve these goals, or would like to point out how we're doing, go for it. So, first one, goal, establish and maintain staff and administrative consistency. One thing on here was that we had was informal dialogue time, which I call the tea time at the school for our board members to sit at. I don't know if people are still, what we talked about at one point was having kind of a regularly scheduled time where one of us or 2 of us or something of the board members would sit in the conference room or something like that, so that any of the staff who want to come talk to us can come talk to us. Kind of open door type conversations. I don't know what people's availability of that is, or the school's availability. If people still are interested in doing that, but maybe that's something we could.
I would do that.
It's kind of the first time I'm not so sure that's a good idea for me, that.
For you in general, or in general, you don't think it's a good idea?
For me personally, in general, I don't want anybody to think that one person's gonna be sit down and then they had to respond for the whole board.
Right.
You know, it's gotta be understood.
Right.
what it is.
Yeah, I think we would have to be clear about stuff like that. I mean, it'd really be listening,
Right.
for the most part. It's like, so to get additional feedback and to, be able to hear people doing. But yes, it's something you would have to be very careful about. I agree. It's not something.
I mean, and we did something with exit interviews that was new to me, I mean, for us to be involved, but I think it worked fine because of the way it was handled. It was nobody else in the building really, it happened to be summer, so, that's all, that was all. Okay.
Build them up and then tear them down in the Suncook Valley Sun. It's a common theme that used to happen.
So, yeah, I don't know how much time I would have necessarily. I mean, actually, with Wi-Fi here, maybe I could go work somewhere. I could maybe sit around. But if somebody wants to step up and get this going, someone who's around, probably not Mr. Winslow, but
Yeah.
I
you or
might
I
have
or
time.
Mr. Williams. Huh? We could
Next
start
week,
doing it.
maybe?
Yeah, or it's beginning of school. Maybe we could wait a month or something
Yeah,
too. I mean,
I think I would think just keeping it in
I like
mind,
tea
and
time.
then, I mean, to get participation, it would maybe like a well advanced notice and possibly like, you know, literally having tea and coffee and refreshments or something, being here early or something like that might get more people to come through.
Yeah, maybe,
Would early in the day work better?
well, or maybe like what, right at the end of the day or something? Like 2:30 when people are leaving? Would that make sense? Or people just out of here? Or?
School's on.
I think it would make sense to do it either before or after school, because people have all different prep times. Paraprofessionals don't have a lot of time during the day, so if you want to catch as many people as you can, I would say before or after. Or both, really, because some people get here early, and some people stay late, so.
With that in mind, my school starts later than the Northwood Elementary School, so it's possible that I could do a
Okay.
before school
Right.
session,
Yep.
which would be, I'd like to be a part of, so.
I can't get up that early. That's the only.
Yeah.
Would we find room? Like, do you think the conference room would be available or something like that?
The
Or-
conference room is generally available on Tuesdays. We have the fewest number of meetings that day, so that would be my recommendation. But certainly after school, or before school, we have more flexibility. So if you pick a date or dates, I can let you know if it's available or not.
Would it be inappropriate or intrusive to be in the teacher staff room? Is that, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, the conference room is just a suggestion. If there's some better place to, that's, yeah. the
Yeah,
staff
I
room
mean, there
best
would
place.
be, we have
Or library.
a room that is vacant much of the time because it's used for health classes. So when it's not being used for health classes, it's available. Certainly before or after school, it would be available. So yeah, there are other spots in the building besides the conference room.
okay, thank you.
Right, so you guys want to seriously look at this at some point? Like,
Sure.
you want to wait a month or something and then
Yes.
start doing it? Let people kind of get into the groove first?
And next time this comes up in our rotation,
Yep.
we'll start to get serious.
Can I just make one recommendation?
Sure.
As you consider when you're gonna do this, I would pick a consistent, like, the third Tuesday of the month.
Oh, yeah.
And make it consistent through the year, so your teachers can expect that. If they like to come and talk.
Totally agree.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on maintain staff and administrative consistency? Okay, we'll move into the next goal, ensure the educational success of students. Any comments or points about that? Seeing none, we'll move on to improve communications with the community. We did have, did everybody see the newsletter that Ms. Hammond put together?
I did. Yeah.
Are we,
Well done.
is that a final draft? Are you ready to
Yeah,
ship
I
it?
mean, I can take criticism, constructive criticism.
I read it, I thought it was great.
Thanks.
Dave, did you, Stuart, did you get a chance to
Did you-
read that?
I sent it to your email, but
I mean, I don't know that we need to
I don't
make a
think I've
motion, but I'd
seen
say,
it.
if the board's okay with it, I'd say to send that out to wherever it should be going.
all right, you can keep it.
I mean, the Laker and Post.
Yep.
Laker.
You want to
Yes,
send it to me,
okay.
I'll put it right in.
Laker, the Sun, the Forum,
Lakers on forum, okay.
Yeah, but I believe
Do you-
what you do
Facebook?
is fine.
they tweet it.
Oh, yeah.
Retweet it.
Were you gonna say something?
Yeah.
Who's the Facebook? Is it you and?
It's the communication committee, so it's me and Ms. Hammond.
So did we, I stood up, will you provide a copy of that to Jocelyn to put on her website?
Sure.
And then if you also send Ms. West a copy, we can put it on the information section of the SAU.
Okay.
And thank you very much for doing that,
No
putting it
problem.
together. I think it looks really good, and now that it's done, it's time to start on the next one.
Yep. Oh, I'm sure we'll have plenty to write about after budget season.
Right. What's up? Yeah, Dave.
Community, with the community support, the revamp of competency-based report cards.
Yep.
Could somebody tell me in a real short answer what that competency report card is? I'm used to having all numbers like 80, 90, 70, or letters A, B, C, D. And then we went to Co-Brown's way of doing it, which, an A was like a 93 to 100, and a B was, the numbers all changed. So what does it really mean, competency-based?
So to define a competency, we're looking at defining a concrete or a transferable skill that students have, such as students would be able to model real-world situations using algebraic equations. That's a skill that encompasses a lot of sub-skills underneath it, but ultimately we want students to be able to get to that level of proficiency. How we define that, we could define that perhaps with the number grade. An A is typically, let's say, the 93 or above. But we could also define that with descriptors, like, is the student able to do that independently? Right? Have they mastered that? Have they exceeded it? Are they progressing towards it, or are they, do they have a limited proficiency? Right? And really, that also ties into what does the state expect students to be able to do? So the state standards tie into the competencies, and we would expect that students who have attained the competencies would also do well on state assessments.
Have you sent out any report cards like that?
We have
before
not,
this?
we are
Okay,
not,
so this, all right.
we are not
My
at that
kids have been out
stage.
for a while, so
Right.
we're gonna start doing that. Well, it's in a good place to communicate with the people, because if I'm having questions, I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions
Oh, yeah.
than me. If it's my kid, I'd really have a lot of questions.
So we are progressing towards competencies.
Okay.
Right now, our initial step is to simply say, what do the state standards, the standards for readiness for college and career, what do they say? And how are our students doing relative to those? That's the standards-based report card that we're moving towards, starting this year, with the goal of eventually moving towards competencies.
Dave, the way I see it is, say if a kid gets like a C or a B in the class, right? And
Yep.
and he passes because homework's a certain amount of percentage and whatever, and he's get that, but he doesn't go on to the next grade level knowing exactly what he was really doing. And that's what the competency is. Is he competent enough in real life situations to be able to put that into use?
Okay. And again, I'm asking because I didn't know, so I'm assuming now there's a lot more people like me. So we have to communicate it.
30 seconds.
Okay.
So you can also think of it like this. Let's take driver's ed, right? I can get an A in driver's ed, right, on the written test? No, I can't. I'm talking about when I was 16. But the measurement of the competency of driving comes through the driving test.
Yep.
So there's many kids that will get A's on the written portion of the test. But on the performance assessment, basically, they're not able to be competent, and therefore they don't earn their license until they become competent. So that's like a real-world sort of explanation of competency-based education.
Thank you.
Yep.
I like it.
So it's our goal to support the efforts to revamp the report card. I was just restating, it's our goal as the board to support the efforts to revamp this report card, so.
As I move on to the next one. Ensure the safety and security of pupils in the school. We are
Yeah, I think we've been doing that all
working on
along.
that. Yep, we're doing good on that one.
The EOP and all that, and revamping that.
Prepare a responsible proposed budget for the 2019-2020 year. That will be coming soon. And become more familiar with policies and operate in a more policy-driven manner. Or at least doing some policies, that's good. Anything else anyone wants to talk about our board goals? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our parking lot items. School board newsletter is in progress. Thank you, Ms. Hanneman. The tractor is gonna have to wait till for the CIP and facilities. School safety is ongoing. Security, ongoing discussions. Competency presentation in March. That's still on the radar? Okay. Our strategic plan goal we talked about already. Our student representative idea. We have,
Yeah,
We talked about this last.
talked about it
the last
meeting.
meeting, and I personally really like the idea that Mr. Rooning put forward in having, I think if I could summarize, and you could summarize for me probably better, but choosing students throughout the school, not randomly, but to honor something that they've done, inviting them to lead us through the pledge at the beginning of our meetings, and there's probably more to it.
You pretty much hit it, except what we used to do that might be a good idea is we buy little flag pins, and then after they
Right.
reach the lead the pledge, we give them a flag pin. The principal introduces them, acknowledges what they've done or what they're about. They lead the pledge, and we grab a picture for the school board newsletter.
Right, absolutely.
And either the principal or the board chair pins the pin on the student, and then, of course, we make sure we get their parents in the picture because they'll be glowing. The one thing I would say is we might want to think about getting a larger flag.
Right, that's kind of small, right?
And the pins.
It might be small, but it's proud.
So personally, I love that idea, and what would be the next step for us
Right,
to
what do
start
we need to do to
doing?
make that happen?
I think that Jocelyn and I would get together and figure out where to order pins and where to order a flag, and then she's familiar with this, I believe.
Right, do the
My only question in that
Monthly,
is the tractor. If we get quotes, have we decided what type of a tractor you want? I mean, the tractor we have must have been bought in 2005.
I know that Ms. Young and I have been talking about that, and I know that she's been
Okay.
talking with Tom about getting quotes.
And we're gonna put that in our budget this year, or maybe.
It's a budget or a it's both. It's
CIP
either a
is
budget
nothing.
discussion or we're gonna use the CIP. It depends.
CIP has nothing to do with it. That's just saying, well, in the future, we're gonna buy a tractor. I mean, we want it, we gotta put it in the budget or put a warrant article out. And my guess is it's so old, it's gotta be replaced.
Is that something we're gonna wanna put in the budget this year?
Well, if we see what it's gonna cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, right,
Because
Yeah.
then I don't know what you guys bid on, and I would say you better have a bid for a snow blower on it. The plow on a tractor is lousy if you think you're using it for plow, except for picking up snow and dumping it. It doesn't plow good on the tractor doesn't plow good. So if we're spending money, that's
So,
all.
I believe you're on the facilities committee
Yeah.
as well?
I
think
am
that-
now, yeah.
Yep, so maybe you guys can get together and actually flush out what the next steps for this will be. With Ms. Young and maybe Mr. Tom, and see if,
But you still need a bucket because of other summer duties and stuff.
details.
Not you.
Right. Um, Okay, anyone want to add anything to the parking lot that we don't want to forget about, or remove things? I would say we don't need both school safety and security discussion ongoing.
No, we're working on things, so.
Yeah, get rid of one of those, though, I mean, we don't need it on
You
there
have that
twice.
twice?
Well, school safety and then
Yeah,
security
it's the same
discussion.
Let's take a security discussion.
Yeah. Everything else, I think, it's good there. Okay, we'll move on to the timeline. This being September. Review of goals. Have we, I think we already talked about the parent notification of release of directory information. Has that gone out?
Yeah, it's in the handbook.
Okay. Discuss budget preparation, maybe that's something we should,
I can give you a little update.
all right, that'd be great.
I didn't hear what you said
Discuss budget preparation, he's gonna give an update on that.
at the next meeting.
No, right now.
Now? Okay.
So Mr. O'Sullivan has prepared the initial timelines up until the budget committee. We need to wait for when their meetings are and this and that. So I believe that, without having it in front of me, your next meeting, he'll be providing you with a draft timeline. You know, what we want, things from the school and this and that, in, so we can give you a draft for you to work on. So at the business meeting, he'll be presenting that to you. So that'll be at the second.
So we as a board are not saying, make sure it comes in under 2% or 20%, or we're waiting to
Good.
get a...
I mean,
Okay, I
that's
didn't know what
up
our
to us. If we-
process was gonna be.
If we wanna do that, we can.
I know, normally we'd say you guys do the budget, because you know what we really need, or what you need, I'm sorry. But if you bring us a budget and it's 10%, and we didn't say the guidelines are come in at,
Right.
you know.
Well, then you
All
can
right,
send
so-
us back.
Yeah, okay.
It's really up to how the board wants to do it.
Yeah.
We can give them guidelines, or we can look at waiting when they
We
give
can
us.
wait and
the
see.
I
proposed
have no
budget.
problem with letting the professionals do it, but I just bringing up points that.
Yep, yep. Well, I mean, it's up to the board if we want to sit down and tell, and, you know, give them some guidance. We could have a
Years past,
discussion
we
on
did. My
that.
first year, we said, we want the budget under the default budget and last year's budget, no matter what, so it'll pass, so we could get a corrective director and a kindergarten teacher in there. That was
Right.
pretty much the guidance that we gave.
Now, let me ask the professionals, is that easier for the professionals to kind of at least
Well,
have a guideline? Like, that one was a good
The
one.
issue for that discussion is that the rules just changed.
Okay.
So your default budget process is going to be a bit different than what it was before. So I can't really, with any specificity, answer your question because what we did before is now not what we're going to do again. I think that you have some pretty responsible administrators who aren't going to pie in the sky you, I hope.
As long as that
So,
sign's in there.
Digital.
Yeah.
Well, I don't,
I anticipate, I mean, regardless of whether we want to give guidance or not, based on our census information, we're going to have a lot less high school students next year than this year. So I expect our bottom line is going to decrease significantly
Yeah.
already. Whether that, regardless of what they do, unless they go nuts, but
so, and at that point, so maybe the best, I mean, if that's what you're anticipating, maybe the best way to approach this is have these guys do their budget process K to 8, and then we'll add in your pretty much sunk costs, the things you're gonna have to pay anyway, transportation and this and that. And then we come up with a number and present it to you. And if you're anticipating that it's going to be down, then maybe that's a time for the board to have a discussion about Shane's sign or something.
that's the time.
So one thing I was, also we're gonna consider is us, when we have those open discussions with the public about the SRO, if, are we gonna put it on a warrant article, right?
Yep.
You know, so that's another thing too, or are we gonna budget for it for next year, just in case it happens? So there's a lot of things that are gonna be.
Yeah, and there's some other things too, like your paraprofessionals, you're gonna negotiate an agreement, and hopefully you're gonna come to agreement to that somewhere before the holidays. And that's gonna go in a warrant article, so that's not gonna, the current level of funding will stay in your budget, but then
Right.
that'll go in a warrant article, so that's a consideration you need to make, you know, to understand that your budget's really gonna be higher, because you're gonna add a warrant to that. But I think all that's gonna come out in your discussions.
So what's our calendar look like then? Is that going to be, we're going to have a ballpark at our next meeting in 2 weeks, or is it? too
Oh,
early for
he's
that?
got it established, I think he's presenting to presenting the budget to you in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the real timeline that he's done right now is, you know, budget information to the principals by here, needs to be in by,
September 21st.
thank you. So,
I get mine in by the 28th, we meet on the 4th. Am I good?
Yes.
see, isn't it easy when you only have one district? So, yeah, we're looking to have you a budget in early October, I believe.
And I'm just saying from experience, the budget that you know to run the school, and then if you have a wish list of a tractor that you believe we need, or a SRO that you believe we need, or anything, you could put you know, almost as a footnote, and then it would, the new total would then be if you guys approve this. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to take whatever guidance the board wants to offer. I would just remind you, though, that the amount that we have control over is teeny tiny. It's a drop
Yes.
in the bucket, and I would appreciate the opportunity to at least make the case for why our teachers have requested what they've requested.
Yep.
So you meet on the 4th.
I- Yeah.
The regular board meeting's on the 4th, so it won't bother you then?
What?
You're meeting on the 4th. You, Mr. Young, are meeting on the 4th about the budget?
You're meeting with me on the 4th? So the budget will come to you 2 weeks later.
It'll just be a pre-draft. It'll
Yeah,
be,
you know, so on the 18th. 'Cause
Right.
And
And
we'll
I
have
think
that.
that'll give you enough time.
seems it, yeah.
It seems like it's a little ahead.
That's good.
I mean, we do have a little aggressive schedule
have
because
more
everything keeps
than normally.
breaking. But
The big day would be going to the budget committee the 1st of December usually.
Right,
so
that's
unless they've
Saturday.
changed theirs, so,
that's Saturday
yeah.
in
Usually
December.
that-
So if you have it October 18th, that gives you 3
You're
meetings.
still gonna plenty of work to do on it, yeah.
in a work session.
And you gotta define your
Yeah,
warrants.
we have to schedule that session.
So,
Okay.
everybody, keep in mind then, if you have, let's put it on the agenda for guidance, budget guidance for next meeting. And it's kind of like, you all have 2 weeks to think about, but what guidance would you want to give? And we can have a discussion about that. And/or what warrants should we have? Right?
Okay.
And we can start talking about it. We can just start talking about it. I mean,
Yeah, that's all.
not that we're going to decide necessarily anything, but it'd be a good thing to start.
You know, in addition to guidance, I think it would be important for the board to define, like, if there's things you want in the budget.
Yep.
You know, like specific, like the tractor, you know, or the sign.
Yeah, I mean,
Or,
the one thing
Or
I
the
can say
sign.
that if it is, you know, like, you gotta make hay when the sun's shining. If it is the fact that our budget's gonna go down significantly because of high school, you know, maybe now's the time to invest, right, when we can, because we're not always gonna have the opportunity to do that, and you know, at some point, tuition's gonna go back up because more students are gonna come in, and at that point, we have to be more lean with our budget, you know.
and by the next meeting, you're also going to have your answer on your infrastructure grant,
Oh,
which is
good.
gonna be
Yeah.
important. You'll get that on the 20th. I will email that to you on the 20th. When's the next meeting here?
Our next meeting
Oh,
here
it's the
is on
20th, so
20th,
hopefully
yeah.
I'll be able to come that night.
Awesome.
Probably not till the next day,
We'll
but
look for an update there.
we'll
then.
have that answer.
All right.
Would it be helpful to have the CIP at the next meeting, just as a reference?
Thank you. All right, Mr. Wilson, do you want to look ahead a month? Anything in October you want to?
No, it's
Put it on our
budget,
radar.
budget preparation, kind of, we already just kind of went over October a little bit.
Coming up in October, we do have a superintendent evaluation, so we need to start that probably.
Yeah,
That's maybe the one thing to keep them.
yeah, we talked about that last meeting too, because we have a new superintendent.
Right. Yep. Okay, anything else on the timeline? All right, there was one thing, I meant to bring this up, I'm sorry, during the superintendent's report, and I forgot to. So, if the board doesn't mind, I'd just like to ask about are we posting the job for a new board secretary?
Yes, I saw it.
We did, it's been posted. Any luck with that, or,
Not yet.
okay,
I have a joint board secretary for you now.
that's good.
Yeah, she was there last.
Yeah, she applied, so she's my one applicant for the board secretary.
So, all right, well,
I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, I can look it up and see if we've advertised.
no, that's fine, I just,
That's down the hall for me. I don't always know,
okay. No, I just want to
I
make
would
sure, I
like to.
just want to make sure it's posted and stuff, I
Yeah.
hadn't seen posted, so.
but I can.
The other thing is I think it'd be nice for the board to, maybe get Suzanne, flowers, a get well card and flowers or something like that, so I'd just like to,
How much?
ask the board for authorization for doing that for,
Yes.
How much would you like to spend?
that I don't know.
I never buy
They're
flowers.
expensive.
Yeah, I'm not a flower guy either.
$100 for flowers now?
No, that
Yeah,
would do
for
it.
nice ones.
50 to
Probably.
100, 50, I don't know, get you in.
I don't think
Something
we'll.
with that, so something.
There's probably some nice ones out in front of the building
Mikey.
now.
Flowers for- So the
It
board
might
would
get you
like,
the 50 might get you the vase.
so the board would like to authorize, the superintendent to do that, to,
Yes.
and get those to work, that'd be great, thank you. Unless anybody has a problem with that? All right. Just want to make that sure. Okay, that's the only thing, sorry to, bring up earlier. Future agenda items. Mr. Rooney, what do we have for our agenda for next?
Delegate assembly paperwork.
Yep.
Review the school resource officer PowerPoint.
Yep, and a schedule the public hearing. And then I just have,
Budget timeline.
yep,
Budget guidance. CIP. And hopefully,
Can we have a copy of the last year's budget?
we have that every 2 weeks, right? Comes in as our,
you have it every month.
right,
Yeah, as long as.
It'll be in there.
Wait, do you want last
Do you want-
year's budget, or do you want this year's budget?
Well, I guess it'll be this year's budget.
Right, they'll be here, they'll be in our packet.
That'll be part of your packet anyway. And I will give you a little, I hate to do this. Can I just back up when we're talking about expense reports? Do you mind?
Sure.
So your expense reports are going to be relatively the same, but what you're going to see in addition to those are your grant expense reports. Just so you know, I mean, they're going to create a lot of questions and confusion for you, and that's okay. That's why they're grants, they're confusing. But as of, we have a financial meeting Tuesday. So at that meeting, we'll provide Jocelyn with copies of all those. They'll also go into your packet. We'll be going through your expense report together, trying to anticipate any questions, any hanging encumbrances, removing those in an effort to get you a more accurate read throughout the year on your budget. And then with a goal of trying to do a soft close on POs in April, and then getting you a fund balance at the end of April, and then having you make your year-end expenses in the first meeting in May. What's happened at the SAU, for a lot of different reasons, somebody being out, those year-end expenses happened so close to year-end that the bookkeepers were overwhelmed with shutting down a year, starting up a year, ordering a year, getting ready for the audit. And so we've got to spread that out for them, or else it won't be productive. So I just wanted to give you a little update about that.
And that's part of why I think the budget committee had a lot of questions at the last budget meeting that I was at. So.
Right, so part of the intervention for that is that in addition to those grant reports and expense reports, the administrator is going to receive an open PO list each month.
Okay.
For them to work with their clerical staff on making sure those are closed as we go as best we can. And then we'll remove the encumbrances. I'm hopeful that will address the issue in all sorts of ways, whether it's employee workload or clarity for the budget committee or clarity for the board on where they're at. So that's our plan.
For the agenda for next month, we'll have next meeting. One of our things is about making this accounting more legible and everything. I'd like to have a little discussion because I have some points that I would like to ask our business administrator if we can pull things out and keep them so that the budget will. I'll give you an example. SAU expenses and the preschool expenses add up to probably $250,000, $300,000.
More than that.
That should not be out of this school's budget. We should make a separate page like we did with the high school so that it always looks like this school spends too much money. I think the NEC program and all the out-of-district ones should be a separate. It could be just, you can't take it because you can't really make it look like you're fighting one against the other. But you could take those and put those all in the last 4 or 5 lines so you can really separate them out. They're in the budget now and it's confusing.
So you want some, we can have a discussion on summaries. I don't know if I agree with every
Right.
point there, but I think having some summarization.
And
like we
in
did is a
SAU,
good idea.
technically, we're being charged for this school, for the SAU, and it probably is only 2/3 and 1/3. 1/3 of the cost of the SAU is really for the high school. So it should be, I'm serious, because this has always been a bone of contention with the people who vote to spend the money. What does it really cost? And when they found out how much the high school was really costing us, we had the last 3 years of budgets went through fairly good.
I'll put it on the agenda.
That was part of it.
We'll put it-
Okay.
I think
I mean, it might end up that,
it's a discussion.
just to warn you, it might end up that that would be sort of a fruitful task for this year if we adopt a new financial system for next year.
Again,
That could be.
I don't know how hard it is to take this number in this line and this number in this line and cut and put it over here
Yeah, I mean, the
on
thing
one
is-
page. It's still, the total is still gonna come out.
It could just be a cover page.
But anyway, we'll ask the
Right.
bill.
You could do that as a cover page,
Yeah.
but Marjorie Mrs. Whitmore worked very hard at aligning your financials with how it needs to be reported to the state.
Right. I don't think that's what we're
So-
necessarily
No.
talking about right now.
But, well, no, it is, because
Yeah,
those
because you can't really
sections-
change it.
No, but
You're not changing
We're not-
costs or lines,
I'm
you're
saying
just moving them
the
around.
budget that we have, we
Right.
at least my view on this is that the budget that we have, the paperwork that we have on our packet would not change, could not change. You know, we could leave it just exactly how it is, and yet just have a summary sheet
Yes.
that breaks out
Yeah.
all the costs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, that's independent of that,
Yeah.
It should always have a summary after our budget anyway.
Sure, that's, yeah,
Budget summary.
I agree, yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about what we'd like to see and how to break it up. I think that's fine. I think it's a good thing to talk about.
And I had one more thing I forgot to bring up, and I'm so sorry. Maybe for next time, before budget season gets busy, can we talk about blizzard bags? I don't know if that's going to be a huge undertaking, or we can just have a discussion about the possibility.
We could put it on the agenda for
Right.
next week,
Not today.
next
yeah,
month, next,
next time.
unless there's too much going on. But yeah, I mean, this
I got it.
blizzard bags.
Or in the future.
Yep.
That's all. I had it right on the front here. and
Anything else for our next meeting's agenda? All right, if anything comes up that you want to add to it, let me know 7 days before the meeting, so a week from now, please.
Have we rescheduled any work sessions, or we're waiting until October to have work sessions for the budget and stuff? When we get
Yeah, I think we're
an extra night or something? We
Wait
can-
to next
okay.
meeting.
Our next meeting is September 20th. And the meeting after that is October 4th, October 18th. I think at the end of October, there might be an extra week.
Okay.
Maybe, right? Because that'd be, oh no, maybe it's November, there's an extra week. But we could definitely do that. That'll be around the time that we might want to do that. There's a joint board meeting at the SAU office at 6:15 on September 24th. That'll be a little over 2 weeks from now. So we'll meet again before that. Is there any closing public comment? Any closing public comment? Would you like to say anything? I'm sure you did. Even has her name.
Or 10 Lower Camp Road. We were just talking about Linda Gare. And one thing about Linda is she loved the kids, and always, even at the end of the school year, she brought stuff in from her house for me and was giving me stuff to use with the kids. So we were just thinking of something that we could do for her with that money that either had her name attached to it. And again, we were just thinking whether if she wasn't a special ed teacher, she would have been an art teacher. So whether we can do something that has a plaque, just something in the school that has her name on it, and we can brainstorm and think about it, a mural or a bench or something either in the library or just somewhere but that's what we were just talking about. So just to kind of give you guys, just a little bit more on her. So that's it.
Good idea. That's great. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Wow, that was good. That was really good.
I'm awake now.
Is Gary okay?
We're awake.
You all right back there?
Craze moment, what are you gonna do?
Any other public comment? We're good.
I
I think that's the end. I'm going to cut off public comment before we go any further. Sorry, is there any board members that'd like to take this opportunity?
I'm afraid to now.
All right, good. Then we're not going to. All right, we do have need for a non-public session. Yes? Yes, under RSA 91-A:3, Part 2C. So we'll need a motion to go into non-public. All
So moved?
Second.
right, we need a roll call in. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Mr. McGuigan is yes. Mr. Ruth?
Yes.
Ms. Hanneman?
Yes.
Mr. Winslow?
Yes.
All right, we're going to non-public.